What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And today we're going to be taking a look at the New York Giants' upcoming offseason and kind of road mapping what they should do to fix two key areas of this roster. First and foremost, quarterback. How do they get that right? How do they forge a brighter future here in the Big Apple? And then on top of that, the offensive line. Because, hey, even if we figure out what we want to do at quarterback, it's not going to mean a whole lot if the quarterback is getting sacked 6 times a game. We need a good offensive line in front of him. So we're going to go through and discuss some of the options that the New York Giants have. We have a soft mock draft that we might go through as well through the first 3 rounds of this draft. There are some intriguing offensive line prospects, and of course, we're going to talk about how the New York Giants can land a quarterback in the draft, but also, what are they going to do at free agency? Because we know that the New York Giants simply just cannot walk into the draft without a quarterback on their roster. Right now, the only quarterback on the roster is Tommy DeVito. Right, that's right. Tommy Cutlets is the future of the franchise. No, he's not, but he is the only quarterback who's technically under contract as an exclusive rights free agent, so he also could technically leave this offseason. The Giants literally do not have a quarterback on their roster, so they need to sign somebody, and they need to draft somebody, in my opinion. I know a lot of fans really want them to trade for this quarterback, sign that quarterback. Don't know how much I want to get into all that, but we'll see where this conversation leads us. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you kicking off this plan to revamp the New York Giants quarterback and offensive line in this episode?
I'm doing pretty good, man. And listen, the Giants need to do a lot of work. We know this. They need another offensive line piece, a starter preferably, and they need to basically add 2 quarterbacks, starting level quarterbacks. And I think the easiest way to go about this is to just sign a Russell Wilson. I know a lot of people don't like Russell Wilson because they think he's washed, they don't think he's very good. But the whole point of Russell Wilson is that he's competent. And the Giants need competency to help bridge the gap between, a veteran and a rookie. Look, I don't really care who the bridge is, to be quite honest with you. You're drafting a rookie quarterback. If you want to draft a rookie quarterback, if you're on that side of the table, the intention is to have that rookie play as soon as they're ready. So having a guy like, let's say, a Stafford or a Derek Carr in place who has a couple years on the contract left, Stafford wants an extension, is not beneficial to the equation, right? If you don't want to draft a quarterback and you want to go get a bridge like Stafford or a Carr, I think more people obviously would like Stafford than Carr just based on obvious difference in talent and quality, then you have the logic that you want to win games now, right? You want to try to make a run. You want to be contending now with Stafford. My question for you is that we just saw the Rams almost beat the Eagles in the postseason. Why are the Rams letting Stafford go? Why are the Rams willing to trade Stafford? Why are the Rams not willing to give him an extension? If they feel as though he can help them win football games, win playoff games, why are the Rams so quick to get rid of Stafford? And if you're the Giants, and what I'm seeing online is that it could cost you a second-round pick to get a rental for 2 years for Stafford. What do we walk away with? We lose a second-round pick, and we walk away with Stafford for 2 years. We're not winning a Super Bowl, guys. Just get out of your head. We're probably not even making the playoffs. The coaching is vastly different. Sean McVay, that offense, it's vastly different what the Giants have. Their defense, everything about them is better than the Giants. Everything. Do you really want to run that risk, gamble that away? And I know, you didn't really want to talk about Stafford that much in this episode, but I'm gonna rant about it for a minute anyway because it just makes no logical sense to me. The good football teams in right now in sustained success, good teams that have sustained long-term success, draft quarterbacks, develop them, and then extend them early, and then create void years to maximize that window of success. That is what good, logical teams do and execute. Okay? I bet you 99% of you guys thought Josh Allen was a piece of dog shit when he was drafted out of Wyoming. I bet you thought that Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to be very good out of Texas Tech. You can't sit here and tell me that you don't think a player is going to be great. Now, I don't love Shadur Sanders. I don't love Cam Ward, but I don't know jack shit until I see them play in the NFL football field. They could end up becoming great, proving any of us wrong in any of our takes. And then we're sitting here like, oh, well, okay, he's great. We made a mistake or we made the right decision, right? We just don't know. Blatantly saying this guy is going to be bad in the NFL unless it's a really bad prospect or someone that just doesn't have the tools, that's a different story. But these two guys, Cam Ward's upside is all pro. And most people would say if he puts it together, his upside is that good. Sanders, I think he has limitations athletically, But yes, he is pinpoint accurate. He can throw the damn freaking ball, and he can get the ball to our WR1 Malik neighbors and do it at a high clip with great accuracy. Those are things that do translate to the NFL level, right? If you take a quarterback in this year's draft class, you sign a 1-year bridge, right, to help that young rookie quarterback assimilate to the NFL, learn the system, feel comfortable in the operations, and then take over. And then in 2026, instead of paying Matthew Stafford on an extra year extension, $30 million fucking dollars, you're sitting here with a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, and $120 plus million dollars to spend on reinforcing weaknesses on the roster. That is the definition of long-term sustainable success. Matthew Stafford for 2 years is purgatory because we're not going to make the postseason most likely. We're not going to push for a Super Bowl. We're going to be an 8-win team, 7-win team, and then we're going to have to mortgage our entire future to trade up and get a quarterback that we want. Where does that get us? Where does that get us but going backward and then mortgaging the future? Why are we going to give away draft? We have a chance to get a quarterback right now at 3rd overall. Why are we going to waste that opportunity? Even if you don't like Sanders, I'm not the biggest fan of Sanders, but I'm willing to take a shot because we may not be in a spot like this where we don't have to give up a future first-round pick, 2 future first-round picks to move up and get a quarterback in the future. Like, we have a chance to get one right now without doing anything. Let's take that chance. Let's run that risk because we have to, because it's the right decision to make. The practice, and Anthony, I agree with your take about this over the last couple of weeks, that the practice of taking quarterbacks is not a bad one, right? You may hit on a good one. You may get the guy that you want. In my opinion, I'm taking Cam Ward if he's at 3, and it's not even a question. I'm running to the podium. I'm cashing it in. And you have a 1-year guy like a Russell Wilson for him to sit behind, learn, whatever it might be, and then take over that job with unlimited spending power in the future. Like, what is so bad about that? Like, I don't understand why people are freaking out about that idea. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Long-term sustainable success, we're seeing the entire blueprint unfold for teams. Like, they're laying it out there for us. We saw it with the Commanders. The Bears are doing it. And you obviously see even the Broncos are doing it, and the Patriots are doing it. None of them went and signed or acquired Matthew Stafford right before they drafted a big-time quarterback. I know they're not the same prospects, but even if you turn back the clock, you don't see it. You don't see teams about to draft a quarterback go and acquire a veteran like that. It's very rare. And like you said yesterday in the podcast, you want to know who tried to do that shit? The fucking Jets. And look where the Jets are. They have a $45 million cap hit for Aaron Rodgers. They just cut him today. Is that where you guys want to be? Like, this, it's a ridiculous concept to me. Ridiculous.
You know who else did it was the Atlanta Falcons, and they're about to cut Kirk Cousins and potentially incur a $65 million dead cap hit. So you're completely right. Good comparison there with the Jets, good comparison with the Falcons, and generally speaking, this is all that I really have to say on the Matt Stafford thing. With Matthew Stafford, I think Giants fans, there are some who believe that signing or trading for Matthew Stafford puts the New York Giants into immediate Super Bowl contention. I understand that a great quarterback can elevate a roster and really mask up a lot of holes on a roster. But let's just break down what the New York Giants need before they can be competitive again. They clearly need a CB1. They probably need a CB2. They probably need a starting defensive tackle. They probably need some help at linebacker. They definitely need some help at edge rusher. They also need a starting strong safety with Jason Pinnock about to hit free agency. Then you flip over to the offensive side of the ball. They need a starting right guard. They could use some depth at center and right tackle. They don't have a wide receiver 2 right now with Darius Slayton about to hit free agency. And what prevents them from adding more talent at tight end as well? That is a hole at nearly every single position group for the New York Giants. I don't care how good Matt Stafford is. I don't care if he used to be an MVP caliber quarterback. He's still great. He's still a franchise quarterback. He is not fixing all of those problems for the New York Giants. Yes, he makes them a better football team. Maybe he makes them fun to watch on some Sundays. He does not win them a Super Bowl. And you are mortgaging your future to bring him in. And only a team that's in a Super Bowl window should even consider doing that for a 37-year-old franchise quarterback. Not a young franchise quarterback to build around for the next decade, but a 37-year-old to hopefully win you some games across the next 2 seasons. The New York Giants are not positioned with this roster right now to win over the next 2 seasons. And as a result, this trade idea for Matthew Stafford, to me, it just seems nonsensical. I don't know where it started, I don't know where it comes from, and I don't know why so many people keep throwing different pieces of wood into this fire and burning this smoke, but that's all it seems to be to me, is just smoke. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is something the New York Giants are legitimately considering. If that's the case, I'll reevaluate once we get confirmation of that news. But right now, I don't see how this makes sense for a franchise or for a team coming off of a 3-14 season with a 10-game losing streak and a quarterback, or a head coach rather, whose back is up against the wall. They are not positioned to win a Super Bowl in 2025 nor 2026 with the amount of holes in their lineups on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And as a result, Matthew Stafford should not be somebody that they are willing to trade future premium draft capital to acquire, even though he's great. And Alex, I've been a major Matthew Stafford fan for the entirety of his career. I used to go to bat for the guy when I would be sitting around having a beer with my buddies and we would be talking football. I used to go crazy defending Matthew Stafford, saying he's maybe the most underrated quarterback in NFL history. I used to have that take, and I think I still do, because he is that great and he is that underrated. However, even though I feel that way about Stafford, I'm that much of a Stafford fan, I can't see the logic behind the New York Giants trading premium draft capital to acquire him when they're sitting number 3 overall and have potential franchise quarterbacks waiting in the wings for them to take. And I think the important thing to clarify, Alex, you mentioned that taking a quarterback is never bad practice. Taking a quarterback early is always good practice. The bad practice occurs when you become married to the quarterback and you refuse to admit that he's bad, like the New York Giants did with Daniel Jones for 6 years. We pretty much knew what his ceiling was after 3 years. The Giants refused to believe it. They wanted to give him time to grow and develop, and they kept changing coaches and changing everything around him to try and make him better, and it didn't work. The Arizona Cardinals, on the other hand, have a franchise quarterback because after 1 year with Josh Rosen, they said, you know what, we could still get a second-round pick for this guy. Let's get rid of him. Now they have a franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. And I know they haven't won a ton of games, but I think we can all admit that you can't place all of that on Kyler Murray. And either way, you can look around the NFL. A lot of teams have done that. They miss on the quarterback position. It doesn't kill them. The San Francisco 49ers, it didn't kill them. Because you have backup plans as a good general manager, and you move on quickly. You hire slowly, and you fire quickly. That needs to be the mindset for the New York Giants, no matter who they draft at number 3 overall. Whether it's Cam Ward, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, I'm not giving him a 5-year leash to prove himself. Give him a 1 to 2 year leash, and then move on if he doesn't prove himself. That's how you build a roster. That's how you get the quarterback position right. That's what Washington did. They had Sam Howell. They gave him 1 to 2 years. They moved on. They were picking early. They said, screw it. We're not going to give him a piece. We're not going to use a number 2 overall pick to make Sam Howell a better player. We're going to move the F on and take Jaden Daniels, and now look at them. They're juggernauts. Even the Chicago Bears. Say what you want about Caleb Williams. I don't really care. They moved on from Justin Fields. Justin Fields didn't even start this season, and they got a new quarterback, and now they have a bright future with a boatload of cap space and a potential franchise quarterback. We'll see what Caleb becomes. But I bet you that if the Bears turn things around in the next 3 years, it's either going to be with Caleb Williams or they're going to have a new quarterback within the next 3 years because they're going to be smart enough to move on when they know it's time to move on. That was the problem with the New York Giants. They didn't know when to move on from Daniel Jones. So all of this to say, the trading for a quarterback like a Matt Stafford, you're sacrificing premium draft capital. What if you don't like the quarterback that you draft in 2025 and now you don't have that premium draft capital in 2026 because you traded it for Stafford? And maybe Stafford rapidly declines in 2025. Then what are you going to do? Now you don't have a pick to get a new quarterback. You're stuck with a rookie that you don't like if you drafted one on top of Stafford, and you've got Stafford who's rapidly declining. You have to think of the worst case scenarios when you consider these decisions. The New York Giants in recent years haven't thought of those worst case scenarios. That's how they burned the 3rd round pick on Darren Waller. That's how they got burned by signing Kenny Golladay to that long-term deal, even though he was coming off of a hip injury. You have to prepare for the worst. The New York Giants have failed to do that across several regimes now, from Reese to Gettleman to Shane. Let's not put ourselves in a position to risk our future for a 37-year-old quarterback. And again, this is coming from a major Matthew Stafford fan. I love the guy. I think he's awesome. He's still a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. I think it's the big 4 of Burrow, Jackson, Allen, and Mahomes, and then it's Stafford to me. But even still, look at this roster. A top 5 quarterback is not turning us into an immediate Super Bowl contender. A top 10 quarterback would be great. I would love to have one. But why not build the roster alongside a rookie and do it, like you said, Alex, the right way, the way the Broncos just did it, the way the Commanders just did it. Get the rookie and build around him. Give him an easy scheme to operate and add talent and keep bringing in pieces and building the roster for the future. Let's not go backwards. Let's not backwards logic this thing. So you're right. I said that I didn't want to rant about Stafford in this episode. I really didn't. And somehow, some way, you made me do it anyway. But let's go ahead and move forward and talk about the draft.
The one thing I really just want to say, it's not about Stafford, really. It's just about general roster building, right? Just general roster building. We're watching teams lay out the blueprint of how to achieve long-term success. And meanwhile, there's a portion of our fan base, and if the Giants did this, it would literally be like reading the script on how to build long-term success, shredding it, and then doing the exact opposite. That is what Stafford is in this situation. So it's the exact opposite of long-term sustainable success, dynasty level blueprint, right? Of course, you have to get very lucky with a lot of things to achieve that level of upside and that level of progression. But the blueprint is there, right? You draft the quarterback when you have a chance, if you have conviction in the guy. I don't know if the Giants do. It's possible they don't. And that's a whole different discussion. But if they have conviction, one of these guys, and they go and they draft this quarterback, right? And they build around this quarterback with money. They reinforce. They put them in a good position to learn and grow. That's really my most important thing for me, right? If you go get Stafford and then you spend all this money and you get this you draft a quarterback in addition, right? You lose a second round pick and you lose the ability to foster a good environment for a young player. Yeah, they're going to be sitting behind Stafford, but I'm talking about in-game performance, right? I'm talking about you don't have enough money to reinforce your offensive line. You don't have enough money to reinforce your defense to keep the offense on the field, more opportunities, more reps. You don't have enough money to add another big-time WR2. You don't have enough money to add whatever needs you have, right? You're now putting your young quarterback in a position where they may struggle to succeed. If you get a one-year bridge, guaranteed money is off the books in 2026, you have this young player, you put them in this position, you say, all right, what are our weaknesses? We have $120 million. Let's go freaking fix it. Let's go freaking fix it. And we have all of our draft capital for 2026 as well. What is the downside to that? That is how you build sustainable success. You have a rookie quarterback, you have a couple of linchpin pieces, critical players on your roster, young talent developing, and you go and you sign a couple of big-time free agents because you have all the money in the world to solve critical positions to help foster an environment of success for your young player. That is how you do it. That is just what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. They extended him early and they created void years, pushed the cap hit, a $22 million cap hit this year, guys. How do you think they were able to afford Saquon Barkley to build an environment of success for the Eagles? How did they were able to go out and just basically solve Jason Kelce retiring 2 years ago and get Cam Jurgens, and they go sign this guy, they go sign that guy. They have good coaching, good decision-making, good drafting, good free agent pickups, right? I mean, I'm using the Eagles as an example because they're kind of like they're cream of the crop right now, right? You look at other teams. How about the Ravens are a good example. They had Lamar Jackson. They extended him. They pushed the void, the cap hits a little bit deeper, and they went and got Derrick Henry to foster an environment of success. Right? This is what teams are doing. This is how you build a blueprint for long-term sustainable success. You don't go get a 37-year-old Stafford who the Rams are trying to trade. What, is that not a red flag in of itself? And we're convincing ourselves that he's going to save our team?
I got to jump in and say I'm not even convinced that the Rams are trying to trade him. Like you've said that several times. I don't think it's true. I seriously, yeah, it's a narrative, and I seriously think it's a narrative. I think it's people who are bored because the NFL season just ended and they need to spark some conversation. There has been no indication from the Rams that they want to trade Matthew Stafford. Even if the random account on Twitter that paid for a blue check mark said that the Giants have spoken to the Rams, that doesn't make it true, okay? Once we hear a Rappaport or a Garofolo or somebody big and in the know, a Schefter, actually start to add some fuel to this fire, I might start to believe it. But until then, I think it's conjecture, I think it's narrative building, and I think it's boredom. This is not the NBA. Luka Doncic trades do not happen in the NFL. This is a serious league. This is not a joke, okay? The NFL does not see things like this happen. Franchise quarterbacks don't just get randomly traded mid-season, okay? That just doesn't happen in this league. So the Matthew Stafford trade for Goff years ago was a groundbreaking, earth-shattering thing. Nobody saw that coming, and nobody expected that that was possible because we never see moves like that. And we're supposed to believe that it's just going to happen all over again a few years later, despite the fact that the Rams were a few plays away from beating the Super Bowl champion Eagles in the playoffs? I'm supposed to believe that the Rams and Sean McVay want to reboot at the quarterback position when they were a false start away from potentially beating the Eagles and going to the NFC Conference Championship game, where they likely would have beaten the Commanders, gone to the Super Bowl, and considering the way the Chiefs looked in the Super Bowl, potentially won it all? This team wants to trade away Matt Stafford? I don't fucking buy it. I don't think they want to trade him away. And I'm not going to believe it until we see some legitimate reporting on it. And I'm sorry. Maybe you really like the accounts that have posted about it. And all due respect to them, I've got no problem with them. And I get it. Everybody's got to have something to talk about. But I just don't believe it. I think that Rams fans are probably giggling with their feet in the air while laying on their bed scrolling Twitter and looking at how stupid Giants fans are right now. That's how I think the Rams fans are looking at this, because they're probably thinking, why in the fuck would we trade away our franchise quarterback? It doesn't happen. This feels the same to me, Alex, as As when a year or two ago we heard, ooh, could the Giants trade for Josh Allen to pair him with Brian Dable? No! Never fucking happening. It's the same thing here, in my opinion. Could the Giants trade for Trevor Lawrence? Not acknowledging the fact that he has a $100 million dead cap hit. We hear this bullshit every offseason as because of the Giants are terrible and they don't have a quarterback. And Daniel Jones convinced everybody that he was a good quarterback and he wasn't. So here we are. Anyway, let's get back onto the main topic of discussion and talk about how the Giants could solve the quarterback and offensive line positions, because we just had a whole battle here about Stafford. And again, guys, to clarify, I love Matthew Stafford. It's just about roster construction. We're not making an argument against Stafford as the player. We're making an argument against the roster construction and sacrificing draft capital for a 37-year-old when you're picking number 3 overall. So that's what we are arguing against. But now I want to talk about the number 3 overall pick and why the New York Giants need to take a quarterback. And I kind of already hinted at it. I talked about it earlier, Alex. When you're picking high, you got to take a quarterback. You just can't be married to it and absolutely sacrifice everything to build around him. Like, you have to make a determination on him quickly and then decide whether or not to move on. Went over that with the Daniel Jones thing earlier. But here's the thing. A lot of fans think that this is the year to skip out on a quarterback because it's not a strong quarterback class. Neither was 2017. Who came out that year? Patrick Mahomes, as did Deshaun Watson, who was really good when he was with the Texans. Now he's just a piece of shit. Whatever. We see bad quarterback classes all the time yield legitimate talents. It happens very frequently. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the bad quarterback classes end up being terrible. Kenny Pickett's class is an example of that. Totally true. But did the Steelers not just make the playoffs despite drafting Kenny Pickett a couple years ago? Why? They moved the fuck on real quick. They quickly figured out he's not a franchise quarterback and they moved on. 2019 was a bad quarterback class. What did the Giants do? They drafted Daniel Jones and they refused to move on. That's why we're in this hole. Had we done what the Steelers did, maybe we'd have a Russell Wilson or a Justin Fields or a combo of both, and we'd be in the playoffs. Instead, we're in hell, in purgatory, waiting to go to hell probably, because we decided to hang on to a bad quarterback for 6 years. This is my argument for why the New York Giants need to take a quarterback this year. Even if it's a bad quarterback class, you might just hit on a franchise guy, like we saw in 2017. Or you might get burned and you might miss on the quarterback position, but you don't need to let it set you back 5 years. Everybody says, oh, if you miss on the quarterback position, you're going to set yourself back 5 years. Says who? Why would you let that happen? Why would you let that set you back 5 years? Just move on if he's not good. That's what the Steelers did. That's why they're in the playoffs with Russell Wilson, because they built a roster and they just moved on quickly from their quarterback. We see that all the time. That's what the Bears did. They moved on from Justin Fields in a timely manner. These guys didn't get 5 years to prove themselves. That's the problem, and I want New York Giants fans to understand what just happened to the Giants with Daniel Jones was not normal. That's not how it's supposed to go. You aren't supposed to set your franchise back nearly a decade by forcing a quarterback to work. You're supposed to draft him, develop him. Oh well, you failed to develop him, move the fuck on. That's how it's supposed to go, and that's what you see good teams do. That's what you saw Washington do with Howell. That's what you saw Denver do with Russell Wilson. They signed him, and they decided early he wasn't the answer. Move on. That's what the Falcons did with Cousins. They signed him. They decided early, move on, brought in a new quarterback. And again, we see teams, the Steelers did it. We see teams do it all the time. You bring in the quarterback. If you figure out he's not good, you just move on. The Giants have to be comfortable doing that. So whether it's Cam Ward or Sanders at 3, I'm fine with either one. I think they're both capable quarterbacks and they both have franchise potential. Maybe I don't have 100% conviction in them, but if I have over 60% conviction, I'm burning that pick and I'm taking the chance, because the benefits of drafting a franchise quarterback, you can't beat them. It's the most important position in all of sports. And if you hit on that position, everything else falls into place. Unless you do what the Giants did, which nobody else does, and you set yourself back 5 years because you try and convince yourself that your bad quarterback is a good quarterback. That's all the New York Giants need to do. Take the quarterback early this year. If he's not that good, you're probably picking high again next year anyway, or the year after if you don't want to go back-to-back, and you can move on quickly. In fact, the free agency market for quarterbacks might be more favorable in 2026. Let's say that they draft a quarterback this year. It's an absolute disaster like it was with Josh Rosen in Miami or in Arizona. He got traded to Miami. Maybe in 2026. Now Stafford is actually a free agent. You don't have to trade premium draft capital to sign him. Anybody ever think of that? What if he's a free agent next offseason?
I'll even throw this in there. If Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders doesn't work out, you are picking top 5, right? Anthony, I think we can safely say you're probably picking top 5 if those two guys don't pan out. If you get Stafford and it doesn't pan out, you're a 7 or 8 win team, and you're missing the postseason, and you're picking 15, right? That's the difference here. You know, one of those things, if they don't work out, we could just draft another quarterback. If the other one doesn't work out, we're trading up a future first-round pick, maybe 2, depending on the prospects available, and mortgaging our whole future. It is mind-boggling that people see Stafford as this golden parachute I've seen, quote unquote, for the Giants. When the Rams are, if they are trying to get rid of him, are doing it for a reason. Only the Giants, backs against the wall, are the team that's going to get suckered into making a dumbass move like this and giving a second-round pick I've seen for Matthew Stafford at this stage in his career, having never played outside of a dome before. Like, come on. Like, this is how we get into dumb places. This is how we find ourselves going backward. We have a chance to get a rookie quarterback, a bridge, and a shit boatload of money to have long-term success, and you guys want to light that on fire because you don't think a prospect is good enough. We don't know. We've never seen them play. You can have your criticisms about the player, your thoughts on why they may not be good, but you cannot make blatant objective claims like this guy is going to suck. Because it holds no weight, man. That's a lie, right? Like, I have my qualms with Shedeur, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he is going to be bad because I don't know. I don't know. I have my reasoning why I think he may not be great, but I think that I'd be stupid to say that he's not going to be great because I think those are two different things. You know, like, I'm not going to say a blatant lie. When I just don't know. Like Josh Allen, nobody saw him becoming this good. Patrick Mahomes, nobody saw him becoming this good. Nobody.
A lot of people saw Josh. A lot of people saw Josh Rosen being a star, and he sucked, and it was Josh Allen who ended up being good. The NFL draft is a fucking crapshoot, which is why you throw darts at the board. This is what I've been saying all offseason long. You have to take a chance. Even if you don't know for sure if this guy's going to be good. Maybe he's really bad. Maybe you think he's going to be bad and he's excellent. Throw a dart at the board, find out, move on quickly if he's not good. That's the whole mantra. That is how good teams build their franchises. That's it. It's really not that hard. I think fans overthink it. They think that you have to wait out until you get the number 1 overall pick and you get the surefire prospect. Alex, who was the last surefire prospect that went number 1 overall? Trevor Lawrence. Has that worked out? Not necessarily. The Jaguars have been terrible with Trevor Lawrence, and he hasn't lived up to the hype. So the surefire thing, let's wait for a good quarterback class. Well, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the quarterback prospect, and he hasn't been the quarterback of the Jaguars necessarily. So when you're picking hot early and you've got an opportunity to draft a quarterback, you draft a quarterback and you figure it out. And if it doesn't work out, you move on and you try again. That's really it. So I don't know. That's really going to be my argument for the Giants all offseason long. That's going to be my mindset for the quarterback position. We're picking high, so we better take one, and we just better not absolutely blow ourselves up to try and force him to be good like we did with Daniel Jones. I'll be the first one. If I think that he's bad after his rookie season, I'll say, you know what, we're picking top 5 again, take another one. Just remember this. Like, I will sit here on this podcast a year from now, and if I don't like the quarterback that we drafted after a year, you all know how much I love Cam Ward. If I think that he sucked as a rookie and we're picking first overall, and I like that quarterback better, I'm going to sit here and advocate for drafting the quarterback because that is smart practice. That is what the better NFL teams do. That's what the Giants have refused to do. That's what the better NFL teams who aren't as bad as the Giants, which is pretty much everyone else, have chosen to do. So, New York Giants, I hope that they understand this. I really hope that they understand how the quarterback position works.
He's made some bad decisions, but listen, Anthony, he's made every bad decision in the book. Every single point of contention, every single critical moment, he's made the wrong choice. We have to hope he doesn't make that again. We have to hope that he understands we have just cleared our cap space for 3 years. We've just been working our asses off to have a healthy cap situation, and you guys want to go get a veteran quarterback and extend him just to go backward in that regard. Like, what's the point of that? It doesn't make any sense to me. Regardless, the right way to go about this, in my opinion, again, I'm not going to speak in facts because I don't know what the future holds, but in my opinion, the right way to go about this for long-term sustainable success is to sign a 1-year bridge quarterback, 1 year, a starting level guy. I think that's Russell Wilson. He is competent. He knows how to play the game. He's a future Hall of Famer. This is a guy that's going to bring a level of competency to your locker room that you know he's going to be consistent. And that's the word that Brian Dibble consistently uses. Consistent. Russell Wilson is consistent. And he's coming from playing in Pittsburgh, in the shitty weather in Pittsburgh. So you know for a fact he's going to walk into MetLife and know how to play ball here, right? He's not coming from a dome. He's not coming from San Diego. He's coming from Pittsburgh. So I think that that's a good kind of seamless transition for him weather-wise. It's close by. He doesn't have to move his family across the world. He's a home in New York City. Like, it's an easy transition for Russell Wilson to say, hey, we're going to give you the starting job for 1 year. If you suck, that's on you. We're going to move on to the rookie quarterback. But the rookie gets to learn, sit, develop, and then you take over from there, you move forward, and you have that rookie assume the job in 2026 if that's how it goes, and you have no dead money on the books. No dead money on the books. Like, and then you can move forward. Or you could give Russell Wilson a 2-year deal and an out after the first season with a little bit of dead money if you didn't want him. You could do that too.
I I think that's more realistic. I really don't think that Russell Wilson is going to sign a 1-year deal. He's Russell Wilson. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's been to the Pro Bowl 10 times in his career. There's no way that he's going into a situation, in my opinion, where he has no future financial security. I think he's much smarter than that, and I think he's going to get a 2-year deal somewhere, although I agree with you, it could potentially be a 2-year with an out after one. However, Alex, I do need to ask you this question about Russell Wilson because you have been mentioning him a lot, and I know that he is your favorite bridge quarterback target for the Giants. Let's say Russell Wilson signs with the Giants and gives the level of production to the Giants that he gave to the Steelers this past season. So I would call that across 10 games. I don't know what his stat line is. I don't know if you have it pulled up, but I know he played well enough to win 18 touchdowns, I think, in 10 games. Is that right? Hold on, I'll do the rare breaking of the fourth wall where I actually pull up the stats. I really try not to break the fourth wall on this show, but you know what? Okay, that's including playoffs. Let's just look at his regular season stat line because that's I understand. I understand. Just give me a second, okay? I know. I've mentioned the Arthur Smith thing too. So 2,500 yards essentially, 16-5 touchdown interception ratio across 11 starts in the regular season. If that level of production, I don't know what that is across a 17-game season, but if we got that level of production out of Russell Wilson for the New York Giants, how do you justify taking him off the field and putting a rookie in? Do you? Can you justify that? Right.
So if you have him on a 2-year deal, that rookie can sit for 2 years, and then you can and then he'll take over when the time is right. Or if Russell Wilson experiences a major decline in 2026, you just replace him. You have your guy ready to go. You have your future ready to take over. Like that's how you develop. That's how you do it. Like that's how you manage a team. You know, that's what a rebuild's supposed to look like.
Good answer. Good answer. That's the answer that I was looking for. That's the one I was hoping you would give me because that's what I think as well. If we got that level of production out of Russell Wilson, I think he remains the starter for all 17 games. And I think whatever rookie you draft at number 3 just continues to sit until he's ready the following year. Because, listen, we always talk about these quarterbacks and the difference between Russell Wilson, let me clarify this just in case anybody's commenting angrily. The difference between Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford, you don't have to sacrifice draft capital for Russell Wilson. He is a free agent. You don't have to trade for him. And relative to their performance in this past season, they're not that far off at this point. Their age is similar. 36 years old, Russell Wilson. 37-year-old Matt Stafford. Yes, Stafford is the better player. Again, like I said, I think he's a fringe top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL. That's absolutely true. Russell Wilson's top 15, though. And top 15 is a lot better than 32nd, which is where the Giants were last year. And you don't have to sacrifice future capital. And you still give yourself flexibility to draft a quarterback and to develop him behind Russell Wilson. Yeah, Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors would actually be a disgusting combo because, listen, Neighbors is sick vertically, and Russell Wilson is one of the greatest deep ball passers in NFL history. And he still threw a beautiful deep ball this past season. He wasn't as great as he's been. He's no longer the 6 years in a row he went to the Pro Bowl player. Yes, he'd be, yeah, literally. I mean, I think you could argue the way that Russell Wilson played this past season, and again, he wasn't an elite quarterback this past season, but he was above average. That's better than any quarterback play the Giants have had since 2017. No disrespect to Eli Manning, should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. He clearly had a drop off in his performance in 2017, 18, and 19. He was benched. I think that this version of Russell Wilson this past season would be better than 2017, 18, 19 Eli, and definitely better than any season of Daniel Jones, in my opinion. So, again, that's just why I wanted to ask that question because we're talking about, bringing in a bridge and moving the rookie in by the end of the season. If you get that level of production out of Russell Wilson, he might actually end up being your starter for 2 years. And he is only 36. So there is actually an avenue here where he plays really well. Maybe he plays even better in 2025. Maybe he gets better as he plays into his 40s. He actually could technically be a long-term solution for the Giants if you think of it that way.
Would have thrown for nearly 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. I would sign up for that any day of the week, right? And we don't have to give up our second-round pick to get him. Just got to sign for money. And by the way, probably less money than Stafford's owed in 2025. So, like, let's be clear here. I'm not saying Stafford's better or Stafford is worse than Russell Wilson. I'm saying that if you want to just win games and be competitive and not win the Super Bowl, you don't have to give up draft capital to accomplish that goal. You just have to use some of your cap space. You don't have to give up a second round pick to get Stafford. You just use some cap space if you want to be in purgatory. You know what I mean? And then have that rookie quarterback developing behind the scenes. And then you use your second round pick on Jonah Savanaia of Arizona.
All right.
To reinforce.
All right. I know, yeah, we do have to get to the offensive line part of this. We've like totally ignored that. But I don't even think it's purgatory. Like, it's not purgatory to have a rookie quarterback. Once you have the rookie quarterback, you're no longer in purgatory. No, I understand. But I want to say, like, Russell Wilson does not prevent you from drafting a quarterback. And if you have a quarterback, a rookie, under contract for 4 years behind Russell Wilson, you can move on whenever you want. And I'm saying, what if Russell Wilson plays well? Then you keep him. Okay, great. But the rookie's still going to be there waiting in the wings to take over whenever he's ready and whenever you're ready to move on from Russ. And that's the thing, and that's the argument to really wrap it up and put a bow on top of this, Alex. I've been saying it is asinine that the Giants have gone 6 years without drafting a quarterback in any of the 7 rounds of the previous 6 NFL drafts. Not even in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. Definitely not in the 1st. They haven't taken a quarterback at any point. That's why they don't have a quarterback under contract. That's why they don't have a fucking future. You should have drafted somebody at some point in the last 6 years. Daniel Jones wasn't so good that you just couldn't draft a backup behind him. I mean, seriously. Even the Chiefs, even the Rams, even the Lions, teams with franchise quarterbacks, they still take shots at the position. The Giants just didn't, and I never understood it. And so here we are. And that's why if the Giants do sign Russell Wilson, don't be mad when they also draft a quarterback, because that is good practice to have a rookie waiting in the wings. Jordan Love, whoever you want to use as the example. It's only good practice. So I'm all in. Alex, if they do go after Russell Wilson, I'd be happy with it. But my number one thing that I want everybody to take away, the Giants better draft a quarterback number 3 overall this year. And I get it. I love Abdul Carter, and I get this whole wave of fans who just watch the Super Bowl and going, build through the trenches. The plan was always to build through the trenches. Nothing's changed. I understand Travis Hunter is phenomenal. The Giants need a long-term plan at quarterback. You get that long-term plan in the NFL draft, and you do that with the number 3 overall pick in the draft, because that is a rare opportunity to be picking that high and taking a quarterback. Excuse me. So I'm not going to hand it off to you so I can take a sip of water and don't die in the middle of this podcast, Alex. Let's talk about the offensive line and the plans to fix that unit before we wrap this thing up.
Major amount of information and really emotion regarding how to properly build this team. And to properly build this team and have long, sustainable success, let's take a page out of the Eagles playbook. Keep adding talent to your offensive line until you find the right players. And if you look at their offensive line, Anthony, 4 out of their 5 starters are 1st or 2nd round picks historically. The Giants can no longer go find 3rd, 4th, 5th round selections and hope they become something. They need to spend a 2nd round pick on an offensive lineman this year. And I like Jonah Savanaia. That's the guy I keep bringing up, and a guy that I'm going to keep talking about because I think he's a good fit at right guard for us. He's got great frame, good feet, good hands. He's a Samoan. Dude's freaking tough as nails. That's the kind of talent that I'm looking for in the Giants. But in addition to spending the 2nd round pick on an offensive lineman, I'm trying to sign a free agent too. I'm trying to sign a guy, and I like Patrick McCarry, but there's other names out there. I know Trey Smith is obviously there, but Anthony, it seems like you have a thought on the offensive line.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say that I don't necessarily agree that the Giants have to spend an early draft pick on the offensive line, because I don't want to shift our narrative too soon. Last offseason, we had the whole argument that the Giants burned too much early draft capital on the offensive line and missed because they kept reaching on offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds. I don't want to walk into this draft and be like, they have to draft an offensive lineman early and watch them once again reach on a Josh Azidu in the 3rd round. So I just want to throw caution to the wind there. They do need to upgrade the offensive line. They don't have to spend early draft capital to do it. There are many ways to build an offensive line. They just need to evaluate better. If that is taking Jonah Savanaia in the 2nd round, great. I think he's an awesome prospect. If that's taking another player in the 3rd round, okay. Just make sure it's the right player. Don't force it just because you're saying, oh, we have to take an offensive lineman in the top 100 picks. That's how you run into trouble. That's how you draft for need. That's how you mess up your team. The reason that the Eagles, Alex, have the offensive line that they have is because even though they had 2 franchise offensive tackles, when they had Peters and they had Lane Johnson, they still took an offensive tackle in the 1st round. They have a good offensive line because they draft the best player available. They don't just draft offensive linemen. They're saying, oh, the best guy on the board right now happens to be an offensive lineman. Let's add him to the collection. He'll get on the field one day and he'll be phenomenal. That's how the Eagles do it. So I don't want to I get where you're coming from, and you're saying, look at how other teams have built, look at how the Eagles have built. I don't think the Eagles have built by burning early draft capital on the offensive line. They have built by taking the best player available, and at times that player has been an offensive lineman. That's what the New York Giants need to do. Whether that best player on the board in the second round is a tackle, a guard, a center, or a corner, a receiver, just take the best player available. That's how you build like the Philadelphia Eagles.
Best practice, you do go BPA. I think Jonah, the reason I keep bringing his name up is because I do think he will be an option at BPA. Like, that could be your best player available if it works out that way. I also love Trey Harris, I believe, the receiver. So there's a lot of talent like in this draft class in terms of guys that can make an impact and lots of upside. So I'm not going to pigeonhole us into taking a guard. I also would like to throw into the mix here. Like, I want to see what Evan Neal can do transitioned. I'm not going to give him a starting job, but I want him to go compete at guard and see if there's any value there, right? He's not a guy I'm going into the season saying, like, he's my starter. He is competing to be a piece on this team. He's competing for a roster spot, really. So, like, that's kind of how I visualize Evan Neal. But what makes the Eagles, and you kind of brought this up, aside from spending draft capital, is acquiring former players that weren't very good and turning them into good players. Mekhi Becton being the latest example of that. They went and got Mekhi Becton for next to nothing and turned him into one of the best guards. Again, coaching, we don't have the coaching that the Eagles do, so I want to make
straight up can't do that.
Yeah, we just don't have the coaching to make stuff like that happen. But I don't hate the idea of getting guys that may need to change the scenery and seeing what they have, like getting them for pennies on the dollar. Maybe have some injury issues, like, they're cheap. Gonna maybe spend a late round.
Don't get mad if they sign Stephon Diggs. Don't get mad if they do that.
No, that's a free agent though, which is different. I'm talking about even going and trading for someone that's still on the rookie contract that just might be injury prone, something like that. If they went and got Diggs,
is on his rookie contract.
Alec Pierce is on his
rookie contract. Alec Pierce, wide receiver.
Yes, I love Alec Pierce. He's awesome.
I do like the idea of trading for players on the rookie contract before they're set to expire. That always makes sense. Yes.
Yep. So I do like that concept as well. I think that the Giants have ways they can get better here. They don't have to pigeonhole themselves into making like specific player selections in the draft. They can go BPA in the second round onward. I do think they should walk away with another running back in this draft class because of how strong it is. In the late rounds, like 5th, 6th round, I would take a shot on one. There are some positions that are very strong. DT, that a 3rd round, 2nd round, there might be a really good defensive tackle there as well. So there's a lot to happen here, but the Giants can get significantly better with young rookies and young guys on rookie contracts littered throughout this roster, and then have that young rookie quarterback assume that role and have a ton of money to go get those key critical veterans when the time is right and be competitive. Like, that is how they should be laying the blueprint out. Russell Wilson helps you achieve that because he's not going to be here for that long, and you don't have to give up any draft capital to get him. So that's kind of why I think you can still be competent in that regard and not have to give up a lot of money. But reinforcing the offensive line is of critical nature this offseason as well.
Absolutely. And the last point that I want to make here on roster building and best player available, I just want to bring home this point that the Eagles do not draft for need. They do draft best player available always. I still remember when they drafted Jalen Carter and people were like, what are you doing? You have Fletcher Cox. Why would you take him? Because he was the best player on the draft board. And it was crazy that he fell to 9th overall for the Eagles to take him. Now he's one of the best defensive tackles in football, and they have him, and they have one of the best defensive lines as a result. I remember this past year, oh, you know what? They needed a cornerback, but who was the best player on the board? Quinyon Mitchell. Who was the best player on the board in the second round? It was Cooper DeJean. Fuck it. Let's take 2 cornerbacks. That's how they built their roster. Remember when they took Nolan Smith? Oh, why are you taking him? He's undersized for his position. You already have a linebacker. You already have an edge rusher in Josh Sweat. Why are you taking Nolan Smith? Because he was the best player on the board for them. That's what they do. They take the best player available. That's how they draft and build a good roster. The New York Giants are always drafted for need. I say this all the time. They have to stop doing that. Take the best guy on the board. You are not talented enough to be avoiding overdrafting at certain positions. Giants fans, seriously. Oh, why would we take a wide receiver? We've got Jalen Hyatt still developing. I want to see what he can do. Get out of here. Take the best player available if it's a wide receiver. That's what the New York Giants need to do. I'm sorry. I don't care about these players' feelings, be better. Just be better on the football field if you don't want to get overdrafted. If you're Jalen Hyatt and you feel like you didn't get your opportunity, I'm sorry. Be better. Just force your way onto the field by being the best player in the world. That's the NFL for you. This is a business. And the New York Giants have nobody preventing them from drafting a wide receiver in the top 3 rounds if that's the best player available on the draft board. If they feel like they have somebody preventing them from doing that, they're out of their fucking minds, because it's not just Malik Neighbors versus the world. At least it shouldn't be. It's not Jamar Chase versus the world. It is not Justin Jefferson versus the world. It is Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. It is Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Keep drafting. Keep adding the best player available. Did it necessarily make 100% sense for the Vikings to take Jordan Addison in the first round? Did they not have a greater need on the roster? Of course they did. But who was the best player available? Jordan Addison. So they took him, and now they just won 14 fucking games this last year. So I'm just going to keep saying it all offseason long. You got to draft the best player available regardless of position. The only time you don't do that, Alex, is when you're taking a quarterback. That's the only time you don't draft BPA. You get a quarterback, you throw a dart at the board, and you try and develop him, and you take the BPA around him. You get the best player available on the draft board every other time other than when you're drafting the quarterback, because you have to figure that out first and foremost. So I pretty much rest my case. I didn't really give my take on how to fix the offensive line, but it kind of all ties in there. My take on fixing the offensive line is you don't reach on offensive linemen because you need offensive linemen. You wait until you're picking and the best player on the board is an offensive lineman, and you take him there. That's what the best teams do. That's what the Chiefs did when they drafted Trey Smith. That's what the Eagles have done with all of their offensive linemen. They're just taking the best player on the draft board, and that's what the New York Giants need to begin doing if they actually want to fix their offensive line. Plus, you got to supplement some of your losses with free agent signings, like you mentioned that the Eagles did and many other teams do. Joe Thuney going to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're already stacked on the offensive line. They went and signed Joe Thuney from the New England Patriots. He's got a freaking Hall of Fame career. He looked like shit in the Super Bowl. If you guys don't know and you just think he's a bad offensive lineman because you watch football, you don't know who Joe Thuney is. That guy's a future Hall of Famer. He's won several Super Bowls. He's a guard who was playing out of position at tackle in the Super Bowl. That's why he had a bad performance. He is one of the best interior offensive linemen in the NFL. And the Chiefs signed him in free agency, even though they already spent a lot of high draft capital on the offensive line with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. So just keep all of that in mind. That is how you build the offensive line. The way that the Giants have done it has been backwards logic. I'm not going to fault them for the Evan Neal pick necessarily, because he was the best player on the board at the time, arguably, and he was a great prospect. It just didn't work out because their coaching sucks and because he just sucks. But generally speaking, you got to draft best player available. That's how you luck into good offensive linemen, and you have to find good offensive linemen in free agency and not be afraid to pay them, because that's what the Chiefs did. That's what the Eagles do. They actually pay those guys in free agency. They do go shopping for big offensive linemen. That's how you build through the trenches. I rest my case here. I think that's the best way for the New York Giants to move forward and finally, once and for all, fix their offensive line. But like I said, it doesn't matter until you figure out that quarterback position, and that's the only position that I'm really willing to reach on out of need over any other position. Everything else, BPA, but you got to draft a quarterback.
I get we're being forced to do this, but this is what the Giants signed up for, keeping Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, unfortunately. Like, this is what they signed up for. If they were to have been fired and you get a new GM and a new head coach, they can make an objective decision about what the future of this team looks like. They can say, you know what? We don't want to draft a quarterback right now. We think this roster is shredded. We think it's horrible. Let's go get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and keep adding blue chippers to this equation. And then we'll try to get a quarterback next year or go get a veteran. That is why we were kind of on this, like, they can be objective if they have new management, but now the Giants have no choice. They're being pressured to do this. However, with that being said, it is never a bad idea to take a quarterback. I mean, Anthony, you wanted to take one last year, and I think that's a valid take. We've been wanting them to take quarterbacks for years. Take a shot at a quarterback. Take one in the mid-rounds even, a guy that has some upside. The Giants haven't drafted a quarterback in like 6 years. You know what I mean? Like, this is a problem. It's a problem. This is what bad football teams look like. This is what bad football teams do. They don't draft players at critical positions. They don't take chances. In the mid-rounds, our drafting has been so poor for the most part anyway, and we haven't taken a single shot on a quarterback with upside. Like, that's egregious by most accounts. That year where Daniel Jones was on his 5th-year option, they should have drafted a quarterback to have a preparation in place. They did not do that, and now we're where we are. So, this is kind of what we've learned along the way as fans, Anthony, and as people that are trying to figure out how to get us out of this mess. And of course, we don't have any say in decisions, but what we do have is a say in, what we think is right and what we think is wrong. And the Giants have a chance to follow a blueprint that is laid out perfectly. It is a true and tried blueprint. You get a bridge, you draft a quarterback, and you hope to God that all the analysts who didn't know jack shit in 2017, didn't know jack shit in 2018, thought that Baker Mayfield was going to be God and thought that Sam Darnold was going to be the savior. And it took them 5, 6, 7 years to get there. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't know anything. all these analysts who said that this guy's going to be great, this guy's going to be bad, this guy's going to be a future Hall of Famer, don't know jack shit. They know nothing. They know as much as we do. That's the truth. Most of them don't know anything. They're just projecting. You can never project what a player's going to look like in the NFL. I mean, I thought Jaden Daniels was going to be great last year, but I saw people saying Jaden Daniels wasn't even in the top 5. I saw people saying that this guy was going to be bad. He was too skinny to play in the NFL.
I'm pretty sure he was like 20th on PFF's draft board. You know who's 25th on the Athletic Dane Brugler's draft board? Shador Sanders. So everybody's like, "Oh, don't reach on Shador." Did the Commanders reach when they drafted Jaden, or did they just take a quarterback? Again, it's not even. It's the only time you draft for need is for a quarterback. If we're talking about the Giants picking, name any one of their draft reaches. When they drafted Eli Apple at 10 and he was number 30 on the draft board, that was a reach. But had they taken the quarterback who was number 30 on the draft board at 10, you could make an argument for it because you just have to see at the quarterback position. It's too difficult. You don't know. You have to project, so you have to throw a dart at the fucking board. I just got to keep repeating myself here. But yeah, I just think that's hilarious. So that's actually really great. I hadn't even thought of that point, Alex. You're so right. There were so many analysts last year who overthought it with Jaden Daniels. In my opinion, I think they're doing the same thing with Shador. I really like Shador. No, I don't think he's necessarily a surefire top 10 pick, first-round talent, but a lot of people didn't feel that way about Jaden Daniels, and look, a team had conviction, took him number 2 overall, and now they're a juggernaut. It could totally happen for whoever drafts Shador this year or Cam. Again, just keep in mind, their draft rankings pre-draft is not the Bible. That is not where they end up being in the NFL. They can go up, they can go down. Number 30th player in the draft can be the number 1 player in the league the next year. You truly just never know.
Saying like people that are like this draft class is bad, like this is, it is objectively like from a prospect perspective, yeah, it's not as good as it has been in years, or last year and other seasons, obviously, but you just don't know. Like, you just don't know until you see what's happening. Like, Cam Ward has taken big steps forward. Sanders is one of the most accurate quarterbacks we've ever seen at the collegiate level. So, like, there are things to like. There are things not to like. But what prospect doesn't have those red flags? Caleb Williams, too much hero ball. Drake May, not enough experience against great teams. Inconsistent footwork, but obviously, lots of great tangible traits, lots of good upside. Jaden Daniels, he's too skinny, he's gonna get injured. You know what I mean? Like, you could Bo Nix, wildly inaccurate, inconsistent, volatile, but has good. Every quarterback has red flags, every single one. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know whether or not a guy's gonna pan out, but the Giants have a chance at 3rd overall without trading any draft capital to get a quarterback. And people want to forgo that opportunity to go trade for a 37-year-old quarterback or whatever the hell. It's just, it is what it is. Like, get the bridge, 1 year, 2 years, just for money, no draft picks, reinforce your offensive line, go BPA in the 2nd round. I don't care. Get your quarterback and prepare for the future and build a good, sustainable model around this young player. That is how quarterbacks pan out in the NFL, Anthony. You build a good situation for them to succeed.
You know what it is? Is Giants fans want a quick fix, and I hate to break it to you guys, there is no quick fix at the quarterback position. It is a process. Everybody wants to just trade for Stafford or sign this guy and be in contention again next year. Situation's everything for every quarterback, and the Giants don't have a great situation for a quarterback. They need to take their time and get it right. I get it. Like, everybody wants to just, no, we don't want to wait for the rookie to grow and to develop. We don't want to go through those growing pains. I understand, but you kind of have to. That's the nature of the NFL. Josh Allen sucked his first 2 seasons in the league. His 3rd season, he turned into a perennial MVP candidate. But he showed flashes in those first 2 years, and it was enough to warrant keeping him rather than moving on quickly. Other quarterbacks are not going to show those same ceilings and those same flashes, and you are going to want to move on quickly, and that could be Cam or Shador. I don't know. Last thing I want to say, Alex, it's completely off topic from the episode, but I want to wrap up with this because I was just watching this video. It was one of those real HD sideline quotes kind of videos from the Super Bowl, and it was Devontae Smith catching that deep touchdown pass versus the Chiefs. That pretty much was the icing on the cake in the Super Bowl on Sunday, and it just reminded me, damn, Dave Gettleman was head over heels for Devontae Smith, and now Devontae Smith is catching basically game-sealing touchdown receptions in the Super Bowl. And who's in the backfield for the same team that he's on? Saquon Barkley. No, guys, I am not saying that Dave Gettleman was a good GM. I'm just saying, could you imagine how he feels right now looking at Saquon Barkley and Devontae Smith hoisting a Lombardi trophy, and those were 2 of his guys that he was enamored by. Now, he sucked. He was a bad GM because he was so enamored with Devontae Smith that he let everybody know it, and the Eagles traded up in front of him and got Devontae Smith. But I'm just saying, listen, all the things Dave Gettleman, he was a terrible GM, but I just thought that was funny. Like, his two guys in some of those drafts are just up there hoisting a Lombardi trophy for our division rival. That's how painful it is being a New York Giants fan, that all of our best players, or all of the players that we really loved in the draft and didn't get, of course they go elsewhere and become absolute superstars. Meanwhile, Evan Neal is so fucking bad that the Giants refuse to put him on the field in his third season in his career. But anyways, I digress. I think this was a really good conversation. Full hour-long episode here, basically. Plenty more on the way. I know we're going to have a lot of conversations about the quarterback position, offensive line, and everything else in between for the New York Giants as we enter what is going to be a very pivotal offseason. It's going to be a lot of fun, so guys, make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, comment your thoughts down below, make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants, and make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify if you're listening to the audio. But without further ado, we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.